Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Just a question of taste with you, well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but you won't work an hour. And now your questions are get creeping and you go and buy our flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Just shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals on Sunday night and special guest tonight. We've got Joe Allen with us. Good evening, Joe.
Evening, Steve. Evening, lads.
Evening, Joe.
Good, Joe.
Good to see you, mate. And it's sad news today. We've lost a Newcastle United legend, and legends come in all different shapes and sizes. And this little guy was an absolute stalwart, not just for Newcastle United, but also for Blyth Spartans. And any of the lads who watch this show who used to work down the pits, or their dads used to work down the pits, will know this guy as well. Alan Shoulder sadly passed away after an illness which many of us have to battle with our families, cancer. And sad day, Joe. You wouldn't want us to mope around, Alan. You and I had a lot of time with Alan over the years on the after dinner circuit, the pub circuit in particular, the pre-match stuff that we did with him, particularly at Fluid and 9 Bar. He used to pop in, and he was always a favourite. And looking at the outpouring of love and some wonderful tributes from people on social media today, his family will be over the moon with that. And he got to choose how he passed away. He was surrounded by friends and family today, and just to see the outpouring of love and affection for him shows you how highly rated this man was as a Newcastle United player.
Yeah, Steve. I mean, I knew Alan from being a schoolboy, at the club, and fortunately throughout me life and my career, I got to know Alan really, really well. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that Alan was more than anything else as a great footballer was he was a great person and a wonderful, wonderful family man. His wife Marie and his lovely family that he absolutely adored, But, yeah, he'll be sadly missed, Alan. But Alan himself, from the rise from basically pitman to professional footballer was astounding that none other than Mr. Jackie Milburn had done himself, So he was in great esteem that way. But he loved playing for Newcastle United. He loved playing football, and he loved scoring goals. And he was very, very proud of his record at Newcastle United, And the fact was that Alan was Alan Shoulder. And when I say about attitude, I mean effervescent, yes. I remember playing in a charity game. I'd retired from playing football with a knee injury. And it was about 5 years later, and Bob Moncur got in touch with us and said, will you come to this charity game at Durham, And I went, yeah, and I'm thinking I'm going to turn up posing, because when you finish retiring with an injury, that's usually because you're knackered, And that was the thing when I got into the dressing room, and Shoulder said, well, I've got you some boots and I've got you some shin pads. And I went, I'm not playing. And he went, yeah, you're playing up front with me. So I went onto the pitch, and I'm playing up front. And bearing in mind, I'm probably 40. Alan Shoulder's over 55, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll do your running for you." So he's running around like a blue horse fly and getting on the end of all these passes. I go down with a collision after about 10 minutes, and I'm thinking I'm knackered. And Alan's went, "Whoa, you let the gun off with that. You seen your knee?" So anyway, he comes off the pitch with us, gets us in his car and takes us to the hospital to Durham in his kit. I'm thinking, this is great. Like, I'm looking at my knee and it's 3 times the size of the other one, you know. I'm thinking, what a bad idea this was to play, especially when you kind of clean. And Alan said, right, I'm off. I'm leaving you. And I says, where you going? He says, I'm got to go back for the second half. He went back and played in the bloody second half and left us in hospital. That was just Alan to a T, you know, just a fantastic guy with a wonderful attitude, not just like I say to football, but a wonderful attitude to life. And, you know, my condolences to Marie and the family and his good friends, you know, because Alan Shoulder was, he epitomizes, like you say, there is different words, legend. He'll always be a legend in my eyes. God rest your soul, Alan. Love you to bits, man.
Yeah, I can only endorse that. You know, if you picked up the phone and asked Alan to come and do something, he'd do something. He was a top lad, and he was good entertainment. And Mitch, I'll come to you first, mate. Just a few words on Alan Shoulder, who's passed away today.
Someone who was part of the teams of my formative years of supporting Newcastle United, and so somebody who also is probably in living memory one of the last of those kind of connections to the community in the pits, and that rise through from amateur football to professional football. That just doesn't happen really these days. And so somebody who meant a lot to Newcastle United because of that community connection. And so for me, yes, very sad to see him pass too early, really, in many ways. And someone I'll always remember fondly is one of the first sort of forwards that I remember supporting in a black and white shirt, and who you know helped form my love for Newcastle United along the way. And so, yeah, very sad to see him pass.
Stu, a few words on Alan Shoulder.
Yeah, well, as Joe pointed out before we went live, I am the youngest here, so I didn't have the.
Hold on.
Looks can be deceptive.
Steve's had 15 minutes took off him. We're having a shave.
Exactly. No, but I never had the privilege of seeing Alan play live. Of course, I was aware of him supporting Newcastle before I was able to go to the games and stuff like that. So it's as Joe mentioned there, he come from. It's a Roy the Rover story, isn't it? So he come from working down the pits to then he went up to Blythe, and within a year he was playing at St James Park for Newcastle United. And I don't think these sort of stories will ever happen again. And by all accounts, he was a very amiable chap, a very friendly fella, and would go the extra mile even when he didn't have to. I never had the privilege of meeting him in person, but I'd like to pass on my condolences to his family, and may rest in peace.
Thank you, mate. Thanks, lads, and a lovely tribute there from Joe. Okay, let's talk football. I can see lots of questions coming in and lots of opinions coming in. And we'll come to some of that in a moment, but I just want to get the lads' view. It's always good to do the professionals on a Sunday when we've all had a period of reflection and we've all had a chance to sleep on it and perhaps even watch the game or the highlights of the game again. I'll come to you, Mitch. I'll give my view last. I want to hear what you lads say, because sometimes I steal your thunder by giving my opinion. So give us your view, Mitch, on today's feelings on yesterday's game.
I said on Friday that the one thing we had to do going into every game was to fear no one but respect everybody. And I think in that second half, our players come out thinking that they had the game in the bag. I think they lacked the respect. We've got another game where tactically Eddie got found out again. Their press took our midfield out of the game on long periods of time, which meant they had possession for more of the time, and they did good things with the possession that they had. You can't take away from them. I think on the balance of that 90 minutes, they deserved it. But I certainly think some players should be looking in the mirror today, questioning, did they respect Fulham enough and did they put enough in that second half to try and deliver what should have been 3 points. Frustrated isn't the word. We've lost at home now to Brighton, West Ham, Bournemouth and Fulham. That's not Champions League form by any measure. Yet the queer thing about the league this year is it's so higgledy-piggledy, we're still talking about Champions League potentially. And so, and I think we've got another game where if it isn't plain to the executives above Eddie that this squad needs a little bit of refreshment and Eddie needs a little bit of help, then I don't think it'll ever be. Once again, options coming off the bench were at best like for like, certainly didn't change, and there was no game changer coming off the bench. And I think that was that's still frustrating. We're back in a situation where I'm starting to ask certain questions again, except now the questions I'm asking aren't of Eddie Howe and the squad, it's above Eddie. There are executives above Eddie who I don't know what the global plan is. I don't seem to see much action amongst them or urgency. And Eddie and the squad are suffering for it.
Stu, feelings on the game yesterday?
I think we have to consider that the players aren't robots and they will give their all. Now, sometimes they're on it, and when everything clicks, they're a match for everybody. And it just, sometimes if you're just a yard short, you're going to get beat, and it's never nice getting beat, and it is predictable. And as Mitch alluded to there, the lack of squad depth is worrying. In fact, the squad will be weaker come tomorrow if the noises from the club are to ring true. You couldn't make it up, could you? As we're got a game, one game coming to get us in the final, and then we're on the verge of potentially qualifying for the Champions League. I'm sure we'll cover it later in the show. And for those who are on Twitter or X, they've seen I've had a bit to and fro with people today. But you two guys on the top will vouch. I was going to mention certain executives, and I mentioned that prior to the Amigos on Friday, so that was before any defeat of Fulham, so it's not a knee-jerk reaction. I've supported Newcastle for a long time. This shirt I'm wearing is a replica shirt of one I bought in Monument Sports for 18 quid when I was about 8 years old, something like that, so I've supported them for 40 plus years, and I've seen them get beat lots of times. And it's never nice getting beat, but you can accept it. The lads are empty now. To me, there's 3-4 players who aren't 100% fit, but there isn't enough cover to rest them, and it's starting to show now. And that's the problem. We've seen it with Joe Linton. If he was injured at half time and we had depth and like real depth, then they wouldn't even have risked him. The bandaged his knee up, sent him back out, and then within 10 minutes he's off again. And he wasn't having the best of games anyway. But for me, I think he and Anthony Gordon have been not 100% fit, but that's all we have at the moment. So it's a shame, because it was a great opportunity for us to solidify our place in the top 5, which should get us Champions League. We've lost, and we'll lose again before the season comes out. But what's most worrying is the manner of the defeat. Like, it's like a meek surrender. It's as if we're devoid of ideas. And unless everyone is fully at it and we're overrunning teams, we seem to just let the players, let the opposition just run through us. And that's something that we shouldn't happen. But I'm trying my best. I'll never ever criticise Eddie Howe because I think the overall picture, I think he's been absolutely fantastic for us. And I think the players have bought into what we're trying to achieve. But it's now starting to show the lack of help they've got. And perhaps the players are questioning the lack of support they're getting from those above them. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Coming to you, Joe. Your feelings on the match yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I take on board what both the lads have said and totally agree with them. But let's face it, the atmosphere was great, I thought, yesterday when at the start. We come out, first 10 minutes we were like Juventus. Second half, we were like Free Bentos. I mean, you know, you're talking about like two absolute different sides altogether. And in that first half, when we had possession, you know, we managed to score a goal. So you're thinking going in at half time, we're going to be all right. And yet, for that first 10 minutes in the second half, bearing in mind that Fulham never had a shot in the first half, we've had Tonali's screamer that, you know, would have been good enough to win any game with it if that went in. But, you know, nobody had a shot. It was like a game of chess, you know. Everybody's passing the ball, but there was no final product. And when the second half comes, I'm thinking to myself, in that first 15 minutes, we're rocking here. And I'm seeing the lads have got the kit off ready to come on. Now, if there is a criticism, maybe could he have seen that, Eddie, a little bit sharper? Because, by the way, we were under the cosh. They could have quite easily scored two, 3 goals in that first 15 minutes. And I think in Smith Rowe, who played in the, if you like, the Peter Beasley road where he got off Kevin Keegan, wandering about where he wanted, affecting the game. And I think he's a good player, him. But in Jimenez, who's been our foil for a long time, for me, he was the best player in the park, Jimenez. So they've took Smith Rowe and Jimenez off, and I'm thinking, get in. What happens? The first touch that the lad comes on, who takes Pereira, takes the free kick, and the other guy scores his first touch of the game, you know. And from then on, we're chasing the game. And I totally agree with the lads about strength and depth at the football club. I've been whittling on about it since the last deadline. You need bodies in to refresh the place, to give the players that are already there a kick up the arse, because I think best part of them know that they're going to play. That team that Eddie's got, his solid team that he's got, is the team that started on Saturday. And that is the team that will play against Arsenal. Now, if there's any good thing to come out of the defeat, right, as a player, when you're getting beat like that, you're thinking, one, you're going to get a bollocking, but two, you're in on Sunday, not to get punishment and run and things like that. That used to happen in the old days by old managers that didn't have, you know, the psychology that's in football now. And hey, who says it didn't work? Liverpool managed to win the European Cup 3 times on that attitude. Fish and chips on a Friday and bollockings when they didn't play well. But at the end of the day, if they're coming in and Eddie's showing them, going through the game and saying this is what's going wrong and this is what's happening, and maybe you can get that, you know, this game that we're playing on Wednesday, make no shakes about it, it's the biggest game of football that we've had in years. You know, we've got 1 foot in this final. Is this going to be the chance to win a bit of silverware, or we're going to cock it up again? Because it's actually there in my hand. We can do that and grab it, or we can do that and let it go. So I think you'll start with the same game on Wednesday, but off Saturday's game, you've got to really take what the positives are in the game, what the positives were. Not many for me. Not many positives for me. Very disappointing and pretty dejected at the end of the game. And the anxiety started coming in for us. And I started worrying about Wednesday's game and what have you. And it just been a word on Callum Wilson as well, because he's been mentoring. I think I might have been unfair on Callum Wilson over the year. Like the time I say years as if it's been blasé, but I'm not. The boy's been injured, yeah. I've had a good think about it, right? I don't know any footballer that I've ever met that wants to be injured. I know every footballer wants to play. And when you think about Callum Wilson, you think about Callum Wilson's goals for games record. It's not his fault probably that his body is breaking down. We've got the best medical team in the world. Newcastle United's medical team is as good as any medical team in the whole of the country, if not the world. So it might be something wrong with his body, you know, but I guarantee the lad himself is not wanting, you know, to break down and be injured. Wherever you are, Steve, come on.
Okay, yeah, good stuff, Joe. I was muted. Bit of noise in the background, yeah. Yeah, I get everyone's point. First thing I did last night when I came out to St James's Park was look at the stats on the Sky app, and I just wanted to check to make sure that the game that I'd seen was the game that I was going to talk about tonight, and it wasn't like the Bournemouth game. Newcastle didn't get 1,000. They didn't get hammered. They weren't completely outplayed. Statistically, Newcastle were in that game from start to finish. Possession was almost equal. Shots on target were bang on the same, 4-4. Shots off target, Newcastle had 6. Fulham had 4. Total shots, 11 for Newcastle, 15 for Fulham. Passes were more or less equal. Clear-cut chances were equal. Corners, Fulham had more. Offsides, Newcastle offside more. But all of the main stats, including aerial duels, won 14 to 13 for Newcastle. Tackles won more for Fulham, which shows you that Newcastle were clearly attacking quite a lot in the game. Goalkeeping saves, 3 for Fulham, 2 for Newcastle. So ultimately, what really changed that game was the finishing, the opportunities. We didn't get the look, really. I mean, we obviously, Tonali's was a wonderful strike, but it would have been offside if it had gone in. We had Willock, who missed a stonewall sitter. He could have stopped it, checked, and slotted the ball into the net. He went for a first time and completely fluffed it. We had Alexander Isak, who created a wonderful chance and hit the bar. Isak missed a chance in the first half as well. We didn't finish our chances. And the goal we scored was a good goal. And that was it. But all in all, that was not the same as the Bournemouth game. We didn't get a complete 1,000. However, the one thing that changed that game for me, the one thing that meant, we knew that we weren't going to get, any change in that game was there was no options on the bench. That was the biggest problem. And Joe's mentioned Callum Wilson, who we're led to believe isn't far away from coming back into the team, at least into the squad. But their bench changed the game. Our bench couldn't, because the only option we had up front was William Asula, who lacks experience and hasn't got that experience in the Premier League, hasn't got that experience with our first team, had limited opportunity to play. And by Eddie's own admittance in his press conference on Friday, doesn't really, he doesn't really just see him as a number 9. He says he could play him out wide. And I just get the impression that, again, Eddie is being hung out to dry, which is what we're going to come on to next, the transfer window, which closes, of course, tomorrow. I wasn't as doom and gloom as everybody, because maybe it's because I expected that. On the Amigos, Gibbo's show where I gave me prediction, I went for a 2-2 draw. I wasn't confident going into this game at all. I did feel that Newcastle were going to struggle to get a win. I would have took a point. In fact, my dad, who sits with us, said, I'll take your result now, Steve, when it was 2-1. But yeah, I think overall, that wasn't the worst performance at home. Certainly wasn't the best. But, it was just one of those days. We didn't take our chances. And if we took our chances, could have been a draw, could have been a win for Newcastle, but we didn't, and that's it. So where does that leave us going into the transfer window now, the final hours of the transfer window? Well, it leaves us in a hell of a position. And we'll come back to you now, Mitch. And it's, I'm seeing it described as good business by journalists and good business by some supporters, that Lloyd Kelly now is on his way to Juventus to sign a loan agreement, which will turn into a permanent deal at the end of the loan deal. And Newcastle, who got the player in on a free, obviously had to pay him a decent chunk in wages, have now sold this player for £20 million, which is going to be great for, our FFP figures. That follows the departure of Miggy, who Miggy was past his sell-by date. Would have been a great attacking option to come on yesterday, by the way. You know, at least it was an option, but we didn't have that option because he's gone. Other journalists now linking players with outgoings, potentially Matt Targett. Again, somebody who could come in and do a job if required, if we get an injury, but somebody who I think Eddie Howe doesn't see him as a first team player, and somebody who the club will definitely want to go. All kinds of championship teams been linked with him over the last 48 hours, and it seems as if he wants to go. Watford keen on him, Leeds keen on him, West Brom keen on him. You know, no doubt he could go. And Craig Hope reporting yesterday that Galatasaray could be in for Kieran Trippier, and we know that with Kieran Trippier, this isn't the first time that a club has come in and tried to test Newcastle's patience. And again, this comes down to, I think a lot of it comes down to, who has the final say on transfers. It won't be Eddie Howe, whether it's ins or outs. He creates a list and gives a list maybe to the transfer committee, but ultimately it's the owners who decide who comes and goes. Eddie Howe could have a situation by close of play tomorrow night where he's lost 3 players and he hasn't got one in, and I think that's why people are really starting to get a bit frustrated. The bearded Toon fan in the chat says, answers, guys, need to be had. 3 windows, no signings. Look, Style, to be honest, in the last 4 games have been poor at home. We've sold Almiron, Kelly's gone. Where is the replacement? Where has the Gahey money gone? Mitchell's a silent operator. At least Ashworth signed players. He flew to Milan, came back with boyhood fan Tonali. Poor from Mitchell. I'm not sure that was the case. Was it Mitchell who was involved with the Tonali thing? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's lots of people not happy about it. Craig Lee says, I'm not one who expected superstar signing, even when the club was first bought. I also understand the PSR problems we had in the summer, but still things don't add up. We've just spent £5 million on an 18-year-old, which was paid up front. That could have been a £30 million player over 6 years. After an 18-month of excellent transfers and forward thinking, we've definitely stalled in the last 2 years. Most would agree we could do with a signing to freshen things up a bit. We've nothing off the bench. I'd be happy with a raw 20-year-old who'd be a prospect. Doing nothing leaves us going backwards. Lots of annoying, lots of people who are annoyed in the chat. What do you think, Mitch?
But before I talk transfers, if you don't mind,
yeah,
I think it will be worth going on record to show support for Joe Willock on the back of the racist abuse he received after the game yesterday. That has no place in our fan base, and those people are not fans of Newcastle United. I've got to say, I hope I speak for us all at NUFC Matters, where to say we condemn this in the highest manner.
Yeah.
And if the club can work out who they are, they should be banned from St James's Park for life.
I'm sure with the capabilities
they've got in the modern
will.
game, no place in our fan base one little bit.
Yeah, Mitch.
Well, transfers. The Kelly one's a bit out of the blue. And to be fair, if you'd said to me that Mitchell would get 20 million for Kelly, I think he is doing his job. However, to suggest that there's another squad member out the door, so the squad is effectively weaker, and we're already concerned about options from the bench, or lack thereof, it beggars belief to me to hide behind PSR and suggest that we can't sign anyone. You have to look at what Villa have just done with Duran. There's a club in PSR problem. There's a club that really needed that sale and apparently still do. It shows the tightrope that clubs walk because of the way PSR is skewed, so that the haves stays the haves, and it is difficult for anybody to catch them up. However, surely taking 2 players out of that squad and leaving the manager short, and then having to have conversations like, well, let's hope Callum Wilson comes back and is fit, which is worse than deja vu, to have left him with that as the main secondary striker option and not have another striker in place to be leaving us short on the right wing, where it's one area where I still stand by what I said on Friday, that Jacob Murphy is part of the solution, but he's not the entire solution. That right wing position needs somebody to compete and freshen up and add a point of difference. And if we've got Kelly going out on the back of Almiron going out, then who in their right mind says that it's okay to then not add back to the squad when we've weakened it? That's shooting ourselves in the foot. And I just don't think you can hide behind PSR on it. It's why I said before, I'm now getting questions about executives above Eddie, about a lack of action, about a degree of inaction. It's almost like, how long is some of them going to get a free pass just because they're not Mike Ashley? And I think it's for me, we've got questions if we don't add back to that squad. Yes, we've got a squad that needs rotation and freshening up and an average age reduced over the next 2 years as players come to the end of contracts, and as the squad needs to evolve. So I totally understand getting the club ready for a summer window is really important. After 3 windows of inactivity, if we don't sign anyone, summer becomes an epic window for us. It's really important that we get that right, and the following summer too. But it just feels like dereliction of duty to leave Eddie with a weakened squad and not chuck him a bone of some description to then freshen that squad up a little bit.
Stu, we've talked about transfers quite a bit over the last few weeks with the transfer window being open, but Eddie told us at the start of this transfer window, there's no happening. There's nothing happening. Nobody's coming in, but he wasn't lying.
He's not going to say, yeah, we're definitely signing someone and this is who we're signing either. So I think when his press conferences, people can take what they want from it, or believe when it suits the narrative, they'll believe everything he says, or they'll do everything he says. But for me, it's a pinch of salt. The reason I opened my mouth there is because Mitch used the phrase I was going to use, which was a dereliction of duty. And my tanks and guns are firmly pointed at the window of Mr. Silverstone, as I'm sure many have realised. And irrespective of what his apologists on Twitter say, I think he is culpable of negligence. Because all these had 14 sponsorship deals, the sponsorships increased, or the turnovers increased from X amount to Y amount in 3 years. We were running on 0 3 years ago. Anyone could have brought sponsorship into that club. There's been no real sponsor of significance over the last 2 years since Adidas, which was announced 2 years ago. And only soon, I know it's only this season that we've been using them, but it was announced the best part of 2 years ago. That was the last significant sponsorship deal we've done. But we've got FedEx, so that's all right. But the thing is, I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm fed up with this constant PSR poverty brainwashing that people are falling for. And the only way we get around that is to generate money. The squad that was inherited had no value to it, and that's fact. And we all know that we would, at that stage, we were going to get relegated and with a whimper and probably struggle to stay in the championship had the takeover not happened. So if you look at the players that we've signed since, the squad or the starting 11 is significantly better, but at least 8 of the first team are untouchable. And I know you mentioned there, Steve, about Asula. He's not ready. He's older than our fullbacks. So how is he not ready? Maybe, just maybe, Eddie Howe doesn't think he's good enough. And that's what we've got to take in consideration. We've got the rest of the squad don't have much value, and we've seen that. You know, the Miggy went for call it 10 million quid. There's talk of Sean Longstaff for 12 million quid. We're getting our hands. We're getting stolen from the value could be more for these players, but everyone knows we're desperate. Do you know why? Because we keep telling them every single press conference, every single snippet that eventually does come out of the club, we've got no money. And it's frustrating to the point where, I mean, it annoys not just me. I'm sure everyone's frustrated with how the PSR thing's working, but I'm sick of hearing it. We support Newcastle United, and what we want to do is give us the opportunity to compete. So instead of all the infighting with each other and childish, petty name calling to get clicks and likes, maybe there should be a bigger thing towards the Premier League and how this is contrived to be, where if you have any semblance of success, you're then going to have to sell. Oh, you can overachieve once, but you dare not do it twice. And this is what's happening to the football, and there's a general apathy towards it now from fans around the world, not just in the UK, where it seems like Man United, Tottenham can struggle, yet they'll still be able to spend more money than us. They've still got debts attached to their club, but they'll still be able to spend more money than us. And a lot of people are blaming Paul Mitchell, and I know this isn't me saying this because I championed him this time last year to become our director of football. I think Paul Mitchell is one of the best directors of football in Europe, or so his record tells us. But he's coming to this club, right? It's like playing chess blindfolded against a grandmaster. How is he meant to get all these quality signings in with no money to sign, no money to spend, and he has to sell? And he hasn't got a squad that has the value to sell enough to get the players in until it gets totally unbalanced. You get rid of 10 players and sign 2. Well, then we're short of numbers then. You know, so it's such a balancing act for me. And you get the frustration. Eddie Howe must be tearing his hair out. He can taste a trophy. That's his job. His job's to deliver a trophy for this club. He's talked about it many times. That's what he really wants to do. He can taste it. He can taste from a football perspective that this team can get Champions League. He's crying for help. And come the summer, that'll be our 4th window without adding to the first team. Our 4th window. How on earth are we meant to progress if that is the case? So rather than just gripe about, the players aren't good enough, or they're tired, or it's stale, this, that, the other, we need to generate money. That's fact. And the only way you can generate money in this league is by selling players or sponsorship. That's it. So it's been established that the squad that was inherited didn't have much resale value. So then we go to sponsors, and to go nearly 2 years without a major sponsorship, to me, that's tantamount to, what was the phrase you used, Mitch? Dereliction of duty. It really is. Now, listen to this though. Drink in the stack, support your club. Buy our clubber. We release it every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? We as fans are doing our bit. Pay for memberships that give you little to no chance of getting tickets, but keep paying the money every year. We're doing our bit. I would just like Mr. Silverton to do his bit. We can't keep hoping to overachieve. You can't. When other clubs are putting the money down and making money and buying players to improve, we're regressing. And how can you regress and expect to improve? You can't. So I'm aware that Paul Mitchell's actually in London. I hope he comes back with more than a Harrods shopping bag. But even now, we've got today and we've got till tomorrow, and then it's, we tried, but it was too late. These are the excuses that used to come from Mike Ashley's regime. You know, it comes across as amateurish, and there's a lack of communication. And now I don't expect Darren Eales or Peter Silverstone or Paul Mitchell to do a Kevin Keegan and stand on the steps, and every time someone throws the toys out the pram and comes in and explains it. But we need to know where the direction is. We need to know that they are trying, not when things are going well, we'll sit in the stack and do a hand-picked audience and say we're really going to do our best. Let's have some progression. Let's have a plan. Let's see the plan. We all know the chairman wants us to be number one. For those who are doubting PIF, they've spent the best part of £1 billion so far. There's talk of a £200 million trading complex. We know that the phrase what came out of the club from the COO, which was said a once in a generation check for a stadium. They will give us as much money as possible, but I get it, it's not easy to get sponsorships, and I know I'm taking up too much time, and I know I outlined on the last time I was on the Amigos, not Friday, the Friday before, how money could be generated quickly, easy wins. And then you get the argument, yeah, but if we wait and we get the Champions League, we can get more sponsorship money. But if we don't spend money, we're not going to get in the Champions League. And it just goes round and round and round and round. So what, for me, sometimes you've got to speculate and accumulate. But if that money comes in from sponsorship, there's no talk about have we got money to sign a player. And the more you plead poverty, the more we get brainwashed as a fan base, the more other clubs sit up and take notice and think they're rich for pickings here. And that's not the Newcastle United that we should be supporting. And I know the blame's with the rulings set by the Premier League and other clubs, but we need to be doing our bit as well. We need to be generating extra money. And it's, for me, it's clear how to do it. And I did highlight this, the way you could get a sponsorship deal by saying, this is the standard what you're paying. If we qualify for this competition, like the conference, you pay extra. If you qualify for this competition, Europa League, you pay extra. If we qualify for the Champions League, we pay extra. Now, we've talked about how the money can be, the transfers can be amortized. You can go and spend 50 million, 60 million, keep a figure, over 5 years, that's 12 million a year. They can get a sponsorship in for 12 to 15 million to cover the wages between now and the end of June. They don't have to have a fire sale. And this is the problem that I'm finding it hard to take, and I'm tired to the back teeth of listening that we don't have money to spend. It's for me, it's not true. And if it is true, then some people have to be culpable for it. And it's not us as fans, because we have done our bit above and beyond. So that's my little speech over with. I know where I feel it, and no one can convince me otherwise that it's not down to the lack of sponsorships, because bring 20, 30, 40 million pounds worth of sponsors in over the last 2 years, we would be talking nearly every other week about PSR, and that's a fact.
Yeah, it's like we're being brainwashed. Some goals to tell you about. Haaland equalised for Man City 2 minutes ago. Arsenal have gone up the other end and scored to make it 2-1. So 2-1 to Arsenal with about 30 minutes left to play. Joe, what do you make of what the lads have said? I mean, you know, we're used to talking football when we do our show together. We haven't had time to do it this week, but, you know, with Alan's passing, it seemed only right to get somebody who knew him on to talk about him. So I'm interested to know what you think about what the lads have said about the lack of transfers. Yeah,
well, when you said Haaland had scored, I thought you were leading into it. Like, thanks very much for that, Steve. I thought you were my mate. And just for the record, Stu, Mitchell will not be coming back with a Harrods carrier bag because we can't afford one of them.
True.
Yeah.
You're making it on look, though.
So the three players like Stu's on about, like, is it probably it that picked themselves? And the three players we're on about, Kelly Asula and Miggy, especially this season, they're not first team regulars. So that's probably what you're saying for them coming off the bench. They haven't been regulars anyway. So like Mitch said before, it's a like for like situation, whereas they're not going to improve. Back in the day when Kevin Keegan sells Andy Cole to bring Alan Shearer in, he said, trust me, I'm bringing somebody in that's going to better the team. I've been saying since 2 deadlines ago, is even forgiving them the first deadline. I've been saying, when you're playing well and you're challenging and for trophies, for positions in the league, that's the time you strengthen your squad. That's the time you bring somebody else in, faces and bodies. But you didn't bring faces and bodies in just for the sake of it. They've got to be decent, which brings us back to the age-old adage about, you know, where are we producing any youth in the whole of the way that the clubs run, right? I'm not going to harp on about this for long, and I'm not going to say what you probably expect us to say, but the thing like Jamie Miley, for an example, he's been at the club for 10 years, that lad, right? He's went to Hartlepool and he scored on his debut yesterday, coming on as a sub, and I wish Jamie all the best. You know what? Sometimes, son, you've got to take a couple of steps backwards to go forwards. And I tell you, going to Hartlepool's not the worst decision you can ever made. Trust us. But anyway, getting on to like what we're on about on transfers. Yeah, what players are going to come on and make the impact, and what is going to what's going to change the game? Now, we've got a scouting system as well that's in place now. If we're going to unearth the diamond, and these players that are coming in that are supposed to be 17, 16 years of age, and we're signing from these clubs, bigger clubs and whatever, we're signing them, but they're not the ready article to play in the team. Whereas with a youth system, I mean, I don't know how long it's been since we've had the Lee Clarks, the Alan Thompsons, the Stevie Howies, them players that got into the first team and whatever. You've got to go back 40 years to get our crop that won the Youth Cup. But that's 40 years. There's got to be... I remember talking to the late Glenn Roder, God bless him, right? And Glenn said to me, he said, this is the most beautiful academy, isn't it? And I says, Glenn, it's absolutely wonderful, the facilities. Can you imagine what we had at Benwell and what you've got here? There's cafeterias, the canteens, the dressing rooms are unbelievable. There's televisions and all sorts. And yet he's turned around and said to us, yeah, the academy's a success and it pays for itself. We get one player that gets to the first team level. One player. Now, we're talking about years ago from the Lee Clark's eras. And yes, there has been players coming around. We've got Lewis knocking on the door now, but it's not enough. You're talking about players and you're talking about buying in. We're buying youngsters at millions of pounds for whatever fee that's under the table, behind the table, and given to the parents. I don't know. But we're buying youngsters that aren't going to get into the team for any time shortly. And where these supporters, what Mitch has just said and what Stu's just said, that are paying the hard-earned cash all the time, the season tickets, they're only gone up, they never come down, they never stay the same. It's like my rent bloke. He never says to me, Joe, I'm taking 15 quid off your rent. He's always saying, I'm putting 25 quid on your rent. It doesn't happen. It just gets higher and higher. And like Stu says, you're paying for merchandise, you're paying for, Jesus Christ, I didn't need any extra help getting a ticket for the match. And there's been times when I've gotten tickets for the game. But I've found it absolutely nigh on impossible without being a member of the club. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm a fan, right? I'm a fanatic. I'm a supporter. But at the same time, to get on this ballot and to get on this thing, if I didn't have the chance to buy a ticket off one of my mates to get to see a game, I'd never get the chance to see Newcastle United play. I'm in a queue like everybody else, and that's right, because there's people been waiting a hell of a long time further than me. But I'd say if we get to Wembley, I'm going to have to scratch on some backs to probably get a ticket. And if I do, it'll be getting in the end of the opposition. It'll not be sitting with our fans. But hey, we've got to get through that first. But what I'm saying is, it's the structure at the club, the way the clubs run. And if you can get that first, the first step is surely develop your own players, man. You've got to develop your own players to come through. You can't keep paying 60 million quid for a person. And these transfer fees are only going to get higher and higher. And the competition out there, how much was it take? You lads tell me, I don't know. If Arsenal got Isak, how much would they have to pay?
A lot of money. You're talking 175 to 200 million, aren't you? That's
would we sell? Would the lads sell?
If we don't get to the Champions League, I think that listening to his interview with Shearer, I would say that he would probably consider moving on. He certainly didn't sound as if he was committing to signing a new contract on that Shearer interview, I've got to be honest. Anyway, listen, we're at the ads, Joe. We're going to go to a quick ad break. Arsenal have just taken a 3-1 lead. Game looks all but done now, but we will have a quick ad break. We will be back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email them at beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and your other podcast providers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the thumb up, which is the like button. Click share to share to your other social medias. Click join to join the channel. And click the subscribe button. We've also got links in our description for buy us a coffee and to be a Patreon member. Some events coming up. An afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand, 6th of April, 12 till 4. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. No Covers takes place at the Clooney, Lilac Lane, Ryder and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets from theclooney.com or by telephone in 0191 230 4474. An evening with Steve Howie and Steve Watson, hosted by Joe Allen, takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 27th of June. Tickets for that are from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on the 23rd of January 2026. Box office 0844 246 1000 or website tynetheatreandoperahouse.tv. An evening with Bad Manners takes place on Friday the 30th of January 2026 and tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainers 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, available from newcastlelegends.com.
Okay, welcome back to the professionals this Sunday night. Over 1,280 of you watching across Twitter and across YouTube, so thank you for tuning in. If you are watching on Twitter, please jump onto YouTube and subscribe to NUFC Matters. I wanted to move on to the crowd. Michael asked a question earlier on. He said, is it just me, or do you think the atmosphere is getting worse at home games this season? I'm embarrassed by how bad and quiet it is getting. How? Why is this happening? Does it come across this way when watching home games on TV? Thoughts? Well, Michael, I was at the match yesterday, and I've got to say I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%. And I do think that on occasions, in games where we are struggling, i.e. Bournemouth at home and Fulham at home and Brighton at home, and, you know, you name all the games where we haven't done very well, the negativity in the stands does pass on to the crowd. And for all the good work that War Flags does by having this resounding start to the game where that opening 5 or 10 minutes is loud and proud, etc., Newcastle United is no different to any other club at this moment in time. And it's changed for a whole host of reasons, Michael. It's changed because of all-seater stadia. It's changed because of clubs now organising things pre-match, which means the atmosphere is not embryonic. It doesn't just start. Music plays its part. Stadium announcers play their part. We've got the Premier League walk-on. It's not the same as it was. It's changed since we were all kids and we went to the match, and since Joe played at Newcastle United as a player. The atmosphere was like a bear pit at St James's Park. Believe you me, it was like a bear pit. Half the amount of fans there and in some occasions, probably 2/3 of the amount of fans less being there. And Terry, I would agree, the atmosphere is crap because people are more interested in making crappy videos than making noise. I actually took to me poem. You know, I still write these poems, and I actually wrote a poem today because I was that angry about what I saw yesterday, about just the people around us, and this sums up football stadiums as a whole. They fill your bars and fill your stands in every ground across the land. Get there late on their phones, never sing, just groan and moan. Half and half scarves, begging for shirts. Don't know the players, these ground hopping blurts. Then leave early to catch that bus. Glory seekers are now amongst us. I think that makes my point quite clear on where I'm going with the crowd, Mitch. Listen, it might sound great on TV, but believe you me, yesterday, Mitch, it was terrible. Negativity, people arriving late, people leaving at half time, people coming up 10 minutes after half time, and people leaving 15 minutes before the end of the game. Which means they've missed at least 20 minutes because there was 5 minutes extra time yesterday. Gone are the days, I think, when people just support the team and sing your hearts out for the lads. It's not there, but it's not just at Newcastle, Mitch.
No, it isn't. There certainly does seem to be more of an issue in every ground that you see in the Premier League. You just have to look at images of the crowd when players are celebrating goals. How many are on phones? How many are looking through a lens all the time instead of being present in the moment? To be fair, though, as somebody who's expat and watches most of the games on the telly, the noise on beIN certainly comes across as okay. The atmosphere comes across as okay. Now, how much of that is TV's ability to manipulate
possible
how the crowd sounds?
Placement of microphones.
They can do that in many ways. But it's certainly, the way we do it in Dubai with the supporters club here, we have a pre-match playlist which is based on what happens at St James's Park. We've got our own flags going. Our atmosphere is always pretty damn good pre-match and during the game. So we're too busy sort of, I guess, doing our own thing to pick up on what's going on in St James's Park. But it certainly doesn't come across as bad as people like yourself tell me. Because I've got plenty of people tell me that the atmosphere in the ground isn't as good and is an issue. But I can certainly tell you on the coverage that I watch, it doesn't come across as that.
Okay. Stu, I mean, you've been to some games when you've been in the country, and you've experienced it. I mean, you've been to a game together this season, and I guess it depends. If you're winning, things that are slightly different. There's more of a vibe around the ground. But yesterday was poor. It really was poor. And I mean, we've even got we've had designated singing areas. At Newcastle. Level 7, of course, was bouncing. Now we've got this designated standing area, which is where a lot of the songs emanate from. Credit to the Leasers yesterday. They did try in fits and starts to generate a bit of an atmosphere. But certain parts of the ground, where I sit, you're ploughing a lone furrow. If you stand up and try to sing a song, you're looked at as if you're mad. You know what I mean? So it's crazy, really, that some parts of the ground will never, ever sing. But what's your take on the atmosphere?
There's many reasons, Steve. It's not just one. You can say that's the reason why the atmosphere is not as good as it was. Maybe it's nostalgia. You see the atmosphere at away games; it's second to none. So, but I think it's something that's been talked about on this platform for as long as we've been doing it. To be honest. We probably have the oldest fan base with season tickets, and no one's given them up. And the older you get, the less likely, or is what's the saying, to gun Raj. So it's people are happier to sit down now, and it's more aware of offending. If you think back to when we were bouncing about the Gallagher and stuff like that, there was a lot more of a carefree attitude, and that some people will relate it to the performances on the pitch. But Joe was playing, then you can relate that the performances or the players on the pitch weren't anywhere near the standard that we've got now, with the odd exception. So there's so many things now where can you just say it's simply because it's all seen as? No. Can you say it's because people don't want to offend? No. There's a combination of things, but there has been times when the atmosphere has been absolutely brilliant. And, you know, the many talk about the PSG game. Is that a one-off? Possibly, but we know we're capable of doing it. But sometimes you need something to ignite it as well. And I'm off the thinking of we shouldn't be sitting or standing and waiting for the players to encourage us. It's a two-way thing. You know, we need to be encouraging the players as well. But we can be guilty just as much as the players have been. I think if you look at the results we've had at home this season, we should win this. But if you look at the teams against the games against the so-called bigger teams, right, we need to make it a bear pit. We need to be up for it. And there seems to be a general consensus amongst fans and the players, right? The effort has to be pushed a little bit extra. But I think the teams that we've lost to this season, we are capable of beating them all, and we'll finish higher than all of them in the league. So is it a case of we just took the eye off the ball? We don't really need to try. But if you try your best every game, and this is getting back to the Peter Silverson thing, if you're trying your very best, that's all anyone can ask. And it's like in any line of work, and if your best isn't good enough, you'll get told. But I just want to recap on the thing I said earlier regarding it. I don't want to come across as needy or demanding, because God knows if I was wanting to be a glory hunter, I wouldn't have been supporting Newcastle United for all these years, you know. But I just feel like as a fan base, we're getting taken for granted. And there's nothing worse than having your dreams crushed. And that's what I think is slowly happening currently. But I just want to get that in before I go back to talk about the fans. I think it is a two-way street. I think you look at what was on Saturday, and for me, the atmosphere, Steve, was similar to when I was sitting with you at the Brighton game. There was an air of expectancy, like, oh, we'll win this. And then it become frustrating quicker because we're not. Yeah, if we go a goal behind on Wednesday, you'll find the fans will react differently and they'll be more vocal. So we have to be in a position where sometimes we're as guilty as the players as well. But in general, I think when I was there, Steve, the Brighton fans were singing louder than us. And there is people that want to go and can we do more? Yeah. I think War Flags do an exceptional job, but we shouldn't wait for a display because they don't get enough donations to do it every game. But you shouldn't need a huge banner to want to support the team. But maybe it's not socially acceptable now to shout your head off and sing for 90 minutes. But, you know, when I'm there, I'll do as much as I can. But there's 50,000 that are going every other week. And it is on us, and we can't take away that we're the best fans in the world. We might be the loyalists because we've put up with so much rubbish being served up over the years. But to be the best fans, I don't know. You have to take. I think we have to be responsible as well as fans. It's up to us to create atmosphere, not just say, well, the players aren't playing bad. That's when they need us most. It's like any relationship. You know, when things are going well. Joel know this from being pals with Gaza. When things were going well with him, you know, everyone wanted to be pal. But when he really needed friends, who's there for him? And that's when you stand up and be counted. And I think the match-going supporters, whether it's the age, whether it's the seating arrangements, and that's the difference as well. You're not sitting generally with who you want to sit with. And I've been to a lot of away games since I moved abroad. And you don't say, well, that's my seat, I'm sitting there. You just get in and get where you want. And normally you're with a group of pals where you're more confident, probably more alcohol-fueled, and you want to be more vocal. You want to show your support. You've travelled further to go and do it. So is the atmosphere worse than what it was nowadays? Of course, I'll say yes. But can it be better? Absolutely. Because if 20,000 of us could make such a noise back in the day, 50,000 could make more noise now. And collectively, we are capable of doing it, and we've shown that on occasions. And I think Wednesday will be one of those occasions.
Okay, Manchester City now losing by 4-1, and still 12 minutes left to go in that game. At least they're getting the goals out of the way now. Joe, you've played at St James's Park for Newcastle as a number 9. You've played for many clubs, of course, and sampled many different atmospheres at different levels. How important is it for the supporters to get behind the team when they're losing, like say Newcastle were yesterday? And you know, how much of an effect does it have you at a place like St James's Park if the crowd are negative?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I listened to the same telly that Mitch listened to, and the first 10 minutes when we played well and got at them, the bloody telly was rocking, you know?
Yeah.
And the second half, it was quiet as a mouse, you know, because we were playing that poor, and because then we're making us look that poor. So I don't know if it's the microphones, like Stu said, it could be positioned strategically. I never thought of that. Yeah, the crowd, Steve, I will say it, as a young apprentice, being in and around the dressing room, especially on match days, basically being Gordon the Gopher for anything that the players want. Bearing in mind, back in them days, there was only 12 players, but obviously some of them were amongst Kevin Keegan, Terry McDermott, Peter Beasley, Chris Waddle, etc., Kevin Carr, John Anderson, I named the whole lot of them. But you're around the dressing room now, and always remember Arthur Cox, right, who was my first manager when I signed as a 14-year-old. And Arthur Cox used to say to them, get these on your side. Get this crowd on your side. They are your 12th man. You will not know when you play for Newcastle United out on that park in black and white stripes what this crowd are all about. So get them on your side. And he used to break down the throats. And that used to be a thing that, especially with Jack Charlton as well, how he knew how much the crowd affected. But in the crowd's defence, I've got to say, the players have got to give them something to shout about. And it's something as simple, right, as closing a ball down, kicking somebody, affecting the game, affecting the atmosphere, doing it, I mean, not in the wrong stupidity where, like, getting sent off every 5 minutes, but doing it, like, with hunger, with aggression, with, you know, 3 inches under your left tit, your heart, you know, run about, be one of them, because every one of them supporters is doing what, you know, them are getting the privilege to do, which is play on that lovely ground in front of them wonderful supporters. So that's what needs to be put in. When players sign for the football club, I see the foreigners take to it exceptionally well these days. The likes of Bruno and Tonali, Big Joe, they all understand what it is the crowd is, because they've never witnessed a crowd like that in their careers. And it should be made. I always say St James's, when we went on that run of 9 games, right? I'm saying make it a fortress again when we played so rubbish against Brentford. We did that. And yes, the bubble's going to burst at the end of the day because we're all human beings at the end of the day. But like Eddie said, when I thought he's saying the right things in, yes, I need to refresh it. The players that's knocking on the door to come into the team, like Mitch said before, and Stu, I think, agreed with, they're not better in the side. It's just like for like, you know. But there's no question about it. And there's no... when you're a footballer, you go out there and you give 100%, whether you're playing crap or whether you're playing brilliant. The first and foremost thing that you do is you bust a gut. You put your head in the way of things. You know, you've got to have that to play professional football. You've got to have that to play normal football in any game of football. 11 against 11, you want to win. You want to go out there with passion. You know, and sometimes that passion can just ignite the crowd. And it doesn't have to be a world-class bit of skill like it has a bit of skill. You know, it just closing the man down and everybody going together and showing that they're all piddling in the same pot. You know, it's a really thing that Newcastle United will be renowned for forever, because our fans are the best and because they are the most passionate. You know, and you have had rubbish served up there, and it's wrong. You know, and now I'm saying more so from a fanatic supporter point of view, how much it really, really means, you know. And I wish some of the players now could have a look, you know, and not, I'm on about players in all professional football. I'm on about the Marcus Rashfords in this world, so I've got to get this off my chest. 375 grand a week. Heart of a pea. an absolute disgrace to Manchester United Football Club. And I tell you what, Aston Villa want to be careful because then they'll get their fingers burnt.
All right. Good stuff. Lots of opinions coming in as well in the chat. Thanks to everyone for chipping in. 1,400 of you watching tonight, so thank you. We never take that for granted. Quick question from Gary. He says, there's a question for the panel and the people in the chat. Who were the other two players signed from non-league for Newcastle? Chris Waddle was one, wasn't he? Towler?
Yeah.
Towler, yeah.
It was the other.
Shawler. Peter Cartwright, come from Blythe.
Peter Cartwright. Is that right, Gary? You'll have to let us know in the chat. I think that is right, actually. It's a good shout, Joe. Good shout. Okay, let's get back to this one from Steve. He says, Stu, playing devil's advocate, is the club struggling to get sponsorship other than Saudi sponsorship that the club are trying to keep on the low down because of an association with Saudi? I'll come to you first on that, Stu, because you have been asked about it. What's your feelings on that? And it's interesting as well with the player moving from Villa, of course, going to Saudi. A lot of people saying, why on earth aren't Newcastle considering sales to Saudi with some of their players and trying to bring some income? I mean, lots of people, again, on social media are asking that question. What's your feelings overall on that kind of Saudi connection for Newcastle and doing business with the Saudis?
Well, as you know, I do a lot of dealing with Saudis, and I mean very wealthy Saudis. So I have a good understanding, and without blowing me on trumpet, probably a better understanding than most of their mindset and how it works. And there was a question that come on before: would I take a points deduction to win a trophy? I wouldn't, because it would feel, for me, it would tarnish it. It would feel like we've had to cheat, and that's something that I believe our owners don't want to do. They want to do it correctly, and I get, could they be waiting for this Man City thing, which very fortunately just happens in February after the window is closed. So there's so much that can be looked at, but I know that personally, Saudi ownership is a good thing for Newcastle United, and they will continue. It's about image. A lot of it's about image. It's about ego. Some people have called it sports washing, etc. Some people have named it as diversifying, etc. But having Newcastle United, which is in the top half of the league, challenging for Europe, is a huge feather in their cap, in the PAF's cap, because it is a global brand, the Premier League. And that's my frustration going back to the sponsorships. Why can't we attract more sponsorships? We could. Now, I can't speak on behalf of people at the club because I don't know if people who are able, or shall we say charged with getting sponsorships in, are they in the Middle East on a regular basis? Or are they just sitting in NE1 saying, well, I'm trying my best. I've sent a couple of messages on LinkedIn. They should be over in this region where me and Mitch live currently. And, I mean, I'm going back, not knocking on the doors with a glossy brochure, but trust me, face-to-face meetings make a big difference. It shows that you've made the effort and you've got something that people want. And that is, irrespective of Newcastle United, you've got an association, an affiliation with the PIF. And I know we've said this on many occasions, and we'll say it many more times, unless you live here, you don't understand the kudos that brings to be affiliated with PIF in this region. So there is people that would spend money just to create that affiliation because it'll open other avenues in their line of business. So when we have the Middle East Twitter experts who have never left the UK, they're trying to have a debate with us and then start calling us names. Get on with it. Have a debate. I'll discuss it with you. Start insulting due to your lack of intelligence and you just embarrass yourself. So I honestly think that the Saudi link, if we're getting on to sponsorships, it's there. The door, it's like an open goal, but you need someone who's going to swing the leg and kick the ball at the goal. And there is, and I worded it today, is there has been a lot of low-hanging fruit that's been picked, but we need to start picking fruit from higher up the tree to bring more money in. And we have behind, or at the very top of our tree, at the very top of our club, we have the ultimate model that people want to, or huge companies want to be in association with, whether it's with football, whether it's not football related. Let it be for whatever it is, as long as it's genuine money, real money that comes in. It's there to happen, and that's the bit that's frustrated us for months now, and for regular viewers of the show, they know it has, because I know that there's many companies that would like that leg up because it opens so many doors for them. So to answer the question, Steve, should we get more sponsors? Yes. Does it frustrate us? I think everyone's going to do their very best to keep calm and not swear and everything else. I think everyone's aware of where we are, but I know where we could be and I know where we should be. So if people want to, like I called them apologists before, and that's me being a bit narky, I suppose, because I've had a day of it today, but our CCO should be basing themselves across here, because that's where you're going to get the big sponsorships from. You're not going to get it from Phoenix. You're not going to get it from, I don't know, some energy drink sponsor or something. They're just, the way big companies work is that they put aside 22% of their budget for marketing, and sometimes it's a tax write-off. But there's companies over here that will spend big money, and you've just got to go and have the meetings with them, tickle their tummy, make them feel worthwhile, show them our plans, which would be nice, our future, where by investing with us they could take them as a company. And if you look at, say, how, and I'm not even asking for how Man City get backed by what is quite clearly the Abu Dhabi government. I'm not even asking for that. I'm asking for external money, because people want to be associated. If they don't want to be associated with Newcastle United immediately, be associated with the PIF. And that opens the doors, so then we're not accused of we're having to sponsor ourselves, because I've seen people complaining, and I know Mitch answered it last week, like, why are PF sponsoring now? It's to generate as much money as they can. Yet people still want to question them. So do they then go down the Man City route where they just keep sponsoring themselves? No, they can, and I think ultimately they'll have to if things don't change. But I'm pretty certain things will change, and we will have a bright future. We have a bright future. We will have a positive future. We will win trophies. So I'm not saying we need to win it now. I'd like to win it now. But what frustrates us more than anything, Steve, I believe there's opportunities there that are being missed. And that's the phrase that Mitch used earlier when he called it a dereliction of duty. There is clear opportunities where companies are ripe for picking. And whether it's a lack of knowledge or just sitting back thinking, well, I've done my little bit, do more. And that's it. Do more, because we as fans keep getting asked for more, and there should never be a ceiling. There should never be a limit of what this can be achieved. And if the Premier League want to test it, we're scared to get this amount of sponsorship in because it might not test them. It might not pass their level. Test them. How can they disprove being associated or sponsoring Newcastle United, whether it's a training kit sponsor, whether it's a shirt sleeve sponsor, whether it's official travel partner, whatever, with stand sponsor, test them. Because at the moment, I don't think the Premier League have got the gumption or the desire to have Newcastle United or face Newcastle United in a courtroom. And this is where I think we should be pushing the barriers, not just accepting. And we're all Newcastle fans. The majority of us are Geordies, raised in the Northeast, and you start thinking, we don't just accept it and don't question it, don't challenge it. And this is what we're expecting of the board. This is what I expect of the board. We've moved on. We have an opportunity now to give us endless success that we've all dreamed of. Just push and push and push. And if they reject one deal, okay, they might reject that, lower it a little bit, and then put the caveat in of being linked to success. For me, it's I don't want to be too strong with the words like it's unforgivable, but it's coasting. And if you coast at your job, eventually you get caught out. But this is people's lives that we're playing with. You know, we know that the fans go to the game, and if Newcastle don't win at the weekend, it has a huge effect on production on a Monday in the region, especially in the conurbation of Tyneside. It has a huge downward effect. But when Newcastle win, the whole world's a much better place. Just push, just do as much as we can, and until that happens, I won't be happy. And I know I said that last week. I won't be happy. And when it is happening, I would ask, why wasn't it done before? There's too many people coasting, or should we call it grifting a living? And I believe they're capable of more. And by showing more, let them get across here into this region, get face-to-face meetings, and start bringing the money that people want to spend, because they've got huge budgets and they want to be associated with PIF. If that's what we've got, if that's our ticket, start selling it. That's it.
Final score at the Emirates: Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. They've got all the goals out of the system for Wednesday. That's for certain. Some positivity in the chat. Jeff says at least they got rid of the Gallagher dead pigeon at Newcastle. Yeah, very good. Very, very true. Yeah, but there is a bit of positivity in there. Lots of questions coming in. We won't have time to get to them, I'm afraid. Mitch, your views. Stu says we need to get the high-hanging fruit, not the low-hanging fruit now. Have we got the ladders big enough?
We need to be less passive. We need to show some aggression. It's time that they actually started to take a few things on. Tried a sponsorship that might be pushing the APT rules and see if it goes through. We should be. I think we need to be tackling certain things head on instead of just sitting back and letting things happen. I think we need to be exploring every potential opportunity we can find, even if it's bending the rules but not breaking them, to come up with clever ideas the way, say, Chelsea do, to get their various accounting things pushed through and to make their lives easier. We need to be less reactive and more proactive, I think. I'm tired of sitting back letting Man City do all the legwork, when surely there's things we could be doing when it comes to taking the Premier League on head-to-head. I know they've wanted to go about it because the risk is that then certain clubs turn back round and say, see, we told you they were the devil incarnate and they're going to ruin football forever. But maybe it's about time we took some risks. Maybe it's about time that we took people on. And maybe it's about time that we puffed our chest out a bit and started thinking like a club in the Big Six, instead of just aspiring to be a club in the Big Six. And that's what I would like to see. And we're just not seeing it at certain levels of our football club at the moment. And it's been like that now for 2 seasons. And whilst you'll not find many people more supportive of the ownership and some of their ideas than myself, I think it's getting to a time where we could ask some honest and difficult questions, as we should be able to do, as the club's most critical friend. We should be the people who can put the arm around the neck of the club and say, hey, we need to see a bit more action here. We need to see the cutting edge a bit more, instead of just sort of talking about it in the background. That's how I feel about it. It's starting to get very frustrating to feel like we still just allow things to be done to us instead of fighting back a little bit. And so that's what I personally would like to see a bit more of at the moment.
See, Mitch, if you're happy to sell for second best, that's the best you'll ever be, and that's not a PIF mantra. Absolutely, it's not.
We have said it before, and I'll say it again. If there's a mindset thing throughout the entire club, and that includes us as a fan base, if we don't change our mindset, the only thing we'll ever be is the biggest club in Newcastle.
Okay, got about 6 or 7 minutes left. I just want to look ahead to the Arsenal game with you three guys and get a prediction. So, Joe, as you've had a little sabbatical there, a little breather, I'll come to you first. Give us your feelings on the Arsenal game. I can see a lot of people in the chat already feeling as if we're going to get beat. I've got to be honest, I'm the polar opposite with this Arsenal game, and I do feel that Arsenal will come and give it a good go. Man City aren't Man City, that from last season and the season before that. I think that was more down to how badly Man City played than how well Arsenal played. Yep, they scored goals. Yes, they did well. And I do think we will all have, as Chipper says, brown underpants on Wednesday night. But I still think Newcastle will go through. I'm still confident. I don't think it'll be as comprehensive as it was at the Emirates, but I've got a positive feeling about Wednesday. I think we'll get through. I think we might scrape through with a draw on Wednesday, and that'll be enough to take us through. But what's your feelings, Joe? What's your feelings about that match on Wednesday night?
Well, firstly, I just want to say how much I've enjoyed listening to the boys wax lyrically, because it's fascinating to me, because obviously I'm coming from the playing side of things. And just on that matter, we bought Peter Beasley from Vancouver Whitecaps, Waddle come non-league, and Gascoigne was for out. We developed them 3 players into world-class players at Newcastle United, in Newcastle United strips. Just wanted to say that.
Yep.
As regarding the Arsenal game, if I'm a manager, we've just getting beat. I would love to think the players have been in today looking at that video, and I would love to think that Eddie's getting the lads together, and not in a way where you're pointing the finger. But sometimes it's all right to have an argument at work, and it's Stu.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
have an argument at work. You can dig somebody out, and I've been in dressing rooms where you'll be the same, Mitch. You got into a room full of 30 blokes, and you can guarantee that all 30 blokes aren't going to get on with each other.
He does that often on a Friday night, to be fair, Joe, but that's another discussion.
Oh, sorry. So anyway, you've got this carry on, right, where in a dressing room you can air your grievance against a bit. You remember as well, when you're a professional footballer, your injuries, the majority of your injuries, up to 80% of your injuries happen in training. So the players that you're playing with week in and week out, right, on a Saturday afternoon, it used to be at 3 o'clock. Every day when you're training and you're going to your workplace, right, you're training with your players around you, and you're going to war with them. I'm going to physically hurt the players that I'm training with every day, because these are going to be taking my shirt off us. And that's what happens in training incidents. That's what happens when there's a saying that the gaffer used to say: you train the way you play. So you can't just train. You can't just turn up on the Saturday and say through the week, "Oh, after you, Claude, it's all right, nicey." You're getting in there and you're firing on all cylinders, and that's where players get. Because if you do go in half-hearted, they end up getting hurt. Trust us. And I had my jaw broken in a training incident. Right, that was a training incident. And my thoughts when I got my jaw broken was it was cracked in 2 places on my left-hand side. And I've said to my captain, Chrissy Houghton, believe it or not, hang it up. This is in training, on the centre half's head, because he knows in my mind, I'm headbutting this lad, and I'm smashing his cheekbone in, because I'm having him. And in doing that, Chris hung the ball up, I nutted him, and cracked the other side of my cheekbone. So I was in hospital for 8 hours having surgery. Instead of having a double fracture, I had a triple fracture. That's my mentality. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't have to get into the players now and say to them before Wednesday, right, lads, the only spur that Eddie's got to say is, you've got 1 foot, right, in this game. Forget about that. You've got a chance now to get to the final. You do whatever you can on that night to get through to this final at Wembley. That's all I've said for every single round we've played in this competition. Get through to the next game. Whether you get through on penalty kicks, I could not give 2 hoots. And I swear to you, just get through by all accounts and get there. You'll have the crowd on your side straight away. Trust us, I know that's going to happen. They'll raise the roof. But let's not be derogatory and let's not be negative. Let's think, yes, what Mitch said, give the opposition respect. This is a side that we've beaten twice this season, by the way. We can beat these by playing our game. Go at it and play them the way we play football, not the way the opposition dictate to us. We dictate to them. Thank you.
Prediction, Joe?
We will win 1-0 on the night.
Okay, good stuff. Mitch, give us your views.
We've got to not let them get an early foothold in the game. We can't be passive. We've got to be positive. We've got to be aggressive, but not over the top. We can get under their skin. for all they're on the back of a really good win today, they're not the Arsenal of old. They're not an Arsenal who I respect. They're a whining bunch of tarts. And we can get under their skin. And we need to get under their skin. And that includes the crowd, everybody back, getting behind the club. And let's put the pressure on them. They've got to overcome a 2-goal deficit. But what we can't do is let them get an early goal, let them get an early foothold in the game. And we can't be as off the boil in midfield as we have been in the last couple of games.
All right. How are you seeing it, the Mitch? What are you predicting?
1-1 on the night.
1-1 on the night. I've caught everybody unawares. You probably haven't got the dice, have you?
I can get it.
Well, go on. You get it while Stu gives us his prediction. Go on, Stu. What are you feeling on Wednesday?
Well, thankfully, we've got to a stage of the show I can be uber positive, because I had a conversation last week. This is before this weekend's results with a good friend of mine who I've known a long time. He's nicknamed Robbie One Punch. And what I was looking at the betting, and Arsenal are 92 to go through. So I said to him, because I'm meeting up with him in London, is it not worth putting a couple £100 on Arsenal? Because if the bet doesn't come in, you know what I mean? If the bet doesn't come in, then Newcastle are at Wembley. And if the bet does come in, I've already paid for my flights and hotels anyway. It's nigh on covered it. I won't give his answer because I know it's a family show, etc., etc. But let's just say, had he had his wish after that conversation, he would have just been called Robbie, and I would have been the recipient of the one push. So we'll leave it at that. And I haven't put the bet on Arsenal because I genuinely think Newcastle will win. At the very start of the show, when I was asked about yesterday's game, the first thing I said was the players aren't robots. And I honestly believe, like us, they've been thinking about Wednesday. Wednesday was a much bigger game for them than what a home tie against Fulham was in the league. This is this thing that we've talked about it, that they've talked about it. They want to win a trophy for Newcastle United. They're not going to win the league. They want to win a trophy. And they're 1 game away, 2 goals up. Whether anyhow wants it or not, or believes it or not, I think the majority of their focus was coming this Wednesday night. And it's the same with us as fans. You talked about the atmosphere before, Steve, that the fans went there thinking, just get this game out of the way and no one get injured. Make sure Isak stays fit. Now, bear in mind, Isak's had 0 shots on target in the last 2 home games. Does anyone think that'll go to 3 games? Not a chance. That lad's going to put Arsenal to bed and they'll start crying again. Wish they could sign him. So we can throw any stats we want. I want the eye test and the ear test. So you won't need careful placement of microphones. So the worldwide audience thinks the Premier League's the Carabao Cup's a fantastic competition, because we are capable of raising that roof. And I think every single fan on that ground of a black and white persuasion will be leaving the horse, because they'll give everything. And I genuinely think the players will. This is the game they've been waiting for since they won at Arsenal. And guess what? 3-1 to the tune. See you at Wembley.
I'm going for a draw, 1-1 on the night. Obviously, that means Newcastle win 3-1 on aggregate. I did laugh at this. Jeff says, it's time to declare fatwa against Mitch's devil dice. What's the dice here, Mitch?
The dice is 1-0.
1-0 to the tune, which is Joe's prediction. Great stuff. Great show tonight. Thank you to everybody who watched. 90 minutes of pure class from Mitch, from Stu, and from Joe. 1,600 of you watching, 1,000 of you on Twitter. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Search NUFC Matters on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Back tomorrow night with the Fans Forum at 6 o'clock. That should be lively. And on Tuesday, it'll be a Talk of the Tune. Wednesday, I might jump on myself during the day just to do a little one as a little pre-warm-up before the match. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Take care, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Speak to it. Enjoy yourselves.
God bless, boys.
Enjoy Wednesday.
God bless.